Today we're going to look at a fairly common workflow that shows how RSpace can be used as a very effective research data management tool. Now, if you're already an RSpace user, you're aware of the fact that RSpace can be the central digital hub of your lab, and that it interacts with a range of other data management tools, like, for example, digital identifiers, external data, different point tools that you use in your particular field of research, calculations tools like Jupyter and coming soon Galaxy. But you'll also probably be aware of the fact that RSpace can interact with your data management plans and your various repositories. Let's go ahead and take a look at one specific workflow where we will be interacting with DMPTool. RSpace will then ingest a plan from DMPTool and combine it with research data that's been gathered at the bench, and then ultimately all of the data will be sent out to a repository. In this example, we'll be using Dataverse. So let's go ahead and first of all look at some of the tools involved. Here is DMPTool, and you can see I have a single data management plan set up in this system. If I click on the data management plan, you'll be able to see the body of the plan, and if I go to the follow-up tab, you can see that currently there's nothing available here in the research outputs area. Meanwhile, here's our destination, Dataverse. You can see I have two existing data sets in that system currently. In the middle, we have ResearchSpace. I'm going to log into ResearchSpace with my credentials. And now you can see we're logged into the ResearchSpace workspace. Here's a typical document that contains a range of mixed data that includes things like different sorts of content that I've created using the text editor and a variety of different sorts of files. Meanwhile, over here in my gallery, I can see files that I've already added to the system, but I can also, if I want to, import new data management tools from DMPTool. If I do that, I can see the DMP tool that I'd like to import. I could select it here and then click Import. As it happens, I've actually previously imported that DMP into my system, and in fact you can see it right here, robtest.json. If I want to, in my existing work, I could refer to that data management plan at any time. For example, I could go ahead and open up my file for editing, and within RSpace I could say, see my plan here. And then I can insert that as usual from the gallery by saying insert from gallery, go to the right gallery section, choose the data management plan I'm interested in and say insert, and then save this. Notice that on this particular document I've also in the past added a couple of different tags, including one that's been drawn from an external repository. If I click on that tag, you'll see here the text of the tag itself, plus the source of the tag in an external third-party controlled vocabulary that's a source for this particular tag type. Alright, so now let's imagine it's time for me to export this work to a repository for storage and public access. I'm going to click on the Export button and choose a format for this data. I'll go ahead and say I would like to send it directly to a repository, and then I'll say Next, and Next again. Here I can choose which repository I'll be sending to today. Let's say I'd like to send it to Dataverse. At this point, I can choose to associate this data deposit with a suitable data management plan. Let's assume that this is the data management plan that describes the research that I performed in my RSpace document. So I'll select it here. I can give this export document a title. Let's just call this Test 1. And for brevity, I'll use the exact same thing for the description. Next, we see a list of subjects that are being handed to RSpace via the API in real time directly from Dataverse. I could choose a subject from here. Let's choose medicine. I could choose a license for some repositories that support that. Dataverse only offers this one. I can also go ahead and add more information about the different users who are involved in this. So, for example, I could say that my email address is this. And I could say that I'm the author of this document. And I can also, if I want to, go ahead and add another person. Let's go ahead and say and we'll say that this person is a contact for this particular piece of data. So now that we have real contacts and real authors added to this, you'll also notice that in the next stage, RSpace has automatically looked at the data that I'll be depositing today, and it's assumed that I would like to tag it with this tag that came from this external third-party controlled vocabulary. Now this is a really useful and time-saving feature because this will help my downstream audience and librarians trace this data more easily in the repository that I send this data to. Now I'm going to click Export. Okay, so when I do that, RSpace will create a bundle of data based on everything that you see in this document, along with all of the attached files and any other data that's in here. Once the RSpace server has created the export and has sent the data to Dataverse, I'll be sent notifications to tell me that that process is complete. Here you can see the creation of the export, and here you can see that the deposit to Dataverse has succeeded. I can now go to Dataverse if I want to, and refresh this page. And now on my list of datasets, you can see here is the dataset that was sent to Dataverse. If I want to, I can also go ahead and click on that to get direct access to it in more detail. And from here, if I tunnel down, I can see all of the files that were part of this dataset. If I look at the metadata, you'll also see that the tag that I added has been automatically added as a keyword within Dataverse. Now there's other metadata that's embedded in here too as well. If I were to sift through the different files in here, I'd actually find some metadata files that include things like my ORCID ID and potentially other metadata that was gathered by RSpace. You'll notice that Dataverse has generated a digital identifier now for this dataset, which tells the downstream audience where they can locate this data. If I now go back to my data management plan area and I go to the follow-up tab and I refresh the page, you'll notice that when I look down here, I can actually see an indication of where my data is available. If I click this link, I'll be taken back to Dataverse to the dataset that we just produced. So now you can see this entire workflow is tied in together from the earliest stages of the planning of the experiment and the procedures, through collection and creation of data at the bench, on to sending that data out to Dataverse and storing it in the Dataverse repository, and even automatically taking that digital identifier, and RSpace act essentially as a broker where it has taken the digital identifier and has passed it all the way back to DMPTool via the RSpace APIs, tying the whole study together end to end. Now you could use a similar workflow to this with other different data management plans and also with other repositories. So there's a lot of flexibility here in terms of how you tie your studies together and what preferred tools you use. If you'd like additional information or if you'd like to get more demonstrations of this, you can contact RSpace support to request an additional demonstration or to get more technical information about how this workflow was created.